Boris Johnson has blown the lid off a political scandal that could shake the foundations of Westminster. In his explosive new memoir, Unleashed, the former Prime Minister reveals that Sir Gavin Williamson, then Defence Secretary, blocked a deal that would have freed British-Iranian mother Nazanin Zaghari-Ratcliffe 5 years earlier. According to Johnson, during his time as Foreign Secretary in December 2017, he had struck an agreement with Iranian officials to secure Zaghari-Ratcliffe's release. The cost? A £400 million debt that the UK had owed Iran since the 1970s. However, this seemingly straightforward agreement was derailed by Williamson in a shocking act of defiance. The deal, which had been approved by both the Treasury and the Foreign Office, was vetoed by Williamson, who argued that the money could end up funding Hezbollah, the Iranian-backed terror group. Zaghari-Ratcliffe, who had been falsely accused of espionage by the Iranian regime, would remain trapped in Iran until 2022. Johnson's revelations paint a damning picture of political infighting at the highest levels of government, where personal ambition and petty power plays seem to have taken precedence over the life of a British citizen. Williamson's intervention, Johnson implies, was driven more by a desire to score political points than by genuine security concerns. The former Prime Minister suggests that some senior figures in government savoured his torment as Zaghari-Ratcliffe languished in Iranian custody, knowing that the public would blame him for failing to secure her release. Zaghari-Ratcliffe's ordeal began in April 2016, when she was detained by Iranian authorities as she was about to board a flight back to London after visiting her parents in Tehran. Accused of spying, she was sentenced to 5 years in prison, a conviction widely regarded as politically motivated. Her case quickly became a diplomatic nightmare for the UK, exacerbated by a gaffe from then Foreign Secretary Boris Johnson, who mistakenly claimed that she had been in Iran to train journalists. This statement was seized upon by Iranian officials and was thought to have worsened her plight, though Johnson now claims it had no real impact on her case. In Unleashed, Johnson describes how he was determined to bring Zaghari-Ratcliffe home, despite the fallout from his blunder. He recounts a tense meeting with Iranian President Hassan Rouhani in December 2017, where the two men sat face-to-face in a mirror-walled palace in Tehran. Johnson writes that Rouhani, a soft-spoken man with fond memories of his time at university in Glasgow, appeared receptive to the idea of resolving Zaghari-Ratcliffe's case, though both leaders agreed that there could be no official linkage between her release and the repayment of the £400 million debt. Johnson left the meeting feeling optimistic, believing that he had secured a breakthrough. However, upon returning to London, he was met with a brick wall in the form of Sir Gavin Williamson, who refused to sign off on the deal. "I won't send money to Hezbollah so they can buy weapons to kill our boys," Williamson reportedly said, effectively killing the agreement. Johnson claims that Williamson's objection had little to do with national security and everything to do with internal political manoeuvring. As Johnson continued to face criticism for his handling of the Zaghari-Ratcliffe case, he suggests that certain figures within Number 10 were relishing his discomfort. The former PM stops short of naming names, but hints at a broader culture of infighting and backstabbing within the upper echelons of government. "There were quite a few people who were savouring my moral torment," he writes, implying that some in the government were more interested in watching him squirm than in securing Zaghari-Ratcliffe's release. Johnson's frustration only grew when he became Prime Minister in 2019. Despite his newfound executive authority, he encountered fresh obstacles to repaying the debt to Iran. This time, it was the White House that stood in his way. According to Johnson, the Trump administration was adamantly opposed to the UK handing over the £400 million, fearing that the payment could violate international sanctions against Iran. Banks, too, were reluctant to touch the money, worried that they could be prosecuted by US courts for facilitating the transfer. In the end, Johnson says, it took a creative solution from an unnamed official at the Foreign Office to finally resolve the issue. The £400 million was transferred using the Post Office Savings Bank, though Johnson remains coy about the exact details of how the money was moved. What's clear is that this complex and secretive workaround ultimately led to Zaghari-Ratcliffe's release in March 2022, ending her 6-year ordeal. The revelations in Johnson's memoir have sparked outrage across the political spectrum. Critics have accused Williamson of prioritising his own career over the well-being of a British citizen, while Johnson's account has raised serious questions about the internal dynamics of Theresa May's government. Could Zaghari-Ratcliffe have been freed sooner, if not for political infighting? Did personal grudges within the cabinet contribute to her prolonged imprisonment? These are the questions now swirling around Westminster as Johnson's memoir continues to make waves. But the scandal doesn't end with Zaghari-Ratcliffe's case. As Johnson's bombshell revelations dominate the headlines, the Conservative Party finds itself in the midst of another crisis. Former Tory MP and pollster Lord Hayward has publicly endorsed James Cleverly to replace Rishi Sunak as Conservative leader, as the party reels from its worst general election defeat in history. With just 121 seats left, the Tories are in desperate need of a unifying figure to restore their credibility, and Hayward believes Cleverly is that figure. Describing Cleverly as the star of the Conservative Party conference, Hayward argues that the former Foreign Secretary is the only candidate who can appeal to both the party's base and the wider electorate. Polling data appears to support this view, with Cleverly leading his rivals by a significant margin. According to a Techni poll, Cleverly is the public's preferred choice for Prime Minister, with 6% more of the electorate likely to vote Tory under his leadership. Savanta polling also shows that Cleverly's appeal extends beyond traditional Tory voters, with a surprising 9% of Labour voters preferring him to Sir Keir Starmer. Cleverly's supporters argue that his communication skills and ability to connect with voters make him the ideal candidate to lead the Tories out of the political wilderness. But with the party still deeply divided, it remains to be seen whether Cleverly can unite the various factions within the Conservative Party and mount a credible challenge to Labour in the next election. Meanwhile, Nigel Farage's Reform UK is quietly building momentum, positioning itself as a serious threat to both Labour and the Conservatives. The party recently claimed a major victory in a council by-election in Blackpool's Marton Ward, where Reform UK candidate Jim O'Neill won a formerly safe Labour seat. The victory has been hailed as a significant boost for Farage's party, which is now eyeing further gains in traditional Labour strongholds. Political analysts have warned that Farage's populist message, combined with growing disillusionment with both Labour and the Tories, could see Reform UK make significant inroads in the next general election. More in Commons' Luke Trial noted that in the Blackpool by-election, the two main parties barely managed to secure 50% of the vote between them, a far cry from the 91% they used to command. Farage's strategy is clear: capitalise on voter dissatisfaction with the political establishment and position Reform UK as the only party that truly represents the interests of the British people. With over 250 local branches now established across the country, Reform UK is gearing up for a major electoral push in the 2025 local elections, and Farage believes his party is on the cusp of a political breakthrough. As the political landscape shifts, the big question is, can Keir Starmer's Labour Party fend off both a resurgent Conservative Party and a rising populist movement led by Farage? With internal divisions, scandal after scandal, and a looming general election, the stakes have never been higher.